Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. This is Nikki, and today I'm thrilled to be a part of my friend Justine's April collaboration event. It's going on all through the month, and the topic we're covering today is ways to use alcohol ink backgrounds. Now I'm doing the second portion of this video. You can find the first portion on Justine's channel. I've got the link down in the description below. Make sure you check that out. The first idea I have for you for using your alcohol ink backgrounds is to stamp over them. If you need a refresher on how to make alcohol ink backgrounds, Justine has a quick refresher at the beginning of her video. There's several different types of ink you can use for this technique. Today I'm going to be using alcohol lift ink, and I have the stamp set from Hutson, and it is called Mondo Sakura. So I'm going to mount that up into my MISTI here. Actually, I already have it done. And you can see by my stamp that I've tried this several times already, and I love the way it comes out. So I'm just going to position this inside my MISTI. Then I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it down on my alcohol ink background. I'm going to let it sit for just a couple of seconds to give the alcohol lift ink a chance to activate the dried alcohol ink. And then I'm going to lift it carefully, and you can see how it made the areas of the alcohol background lighter. I'm just going to dab it off a little with my handy dandy microfiber cloth here, and I'm going to stamp over it one more time. This is where the MISTI really comes in handy. You can do this without accidentally causing a halo over your stamped image. The next thing I'm going to do is mount this on a piece of 5 by 4 1/4 lilac cardstock. I believe this is Bazzill card shop. I'm going to use this die for my sentiment. It's called Happy Greetings from My Favorite Things. I've already die cut it off camera, and I arranged it on my cutting mat and used a piece of washi tape to hold everything straight. It's a super quick and easy way to transfer a die cut sentiment to a card front. I'm just going to add a few dabs of deluxe adhesive. This is my favorite adhesive from Nuvo. Apply it to my card and then carefully peel off the washi tape. The next thing is to add this to my card base. This is an A2 5.5 by 4 1/4 card base. I believe it is Neenah Solar White. And there is our first card. The next option for using your alcohol ink backgrounds that I have to share with you is using a stencil over them. Now, I had this background here, and I wasn't really fussy on how it came out. It does have a really nice pattern to it if you look real close. It's almost like little checkers. I'm not sure what caused that, but I don't know. It really didn't do it for me. So what I decided to do was put a stencil over it. Now, even though the Yupo paper is a slick paper, you can still do embossing over it, like embossing pastes and such. What I'm going to do is tape this down to my work surface so it doesn't move around. And then I'm going to use some of the alcohol blending solution. And my trusty microfiber cloth again, I'm going to roll it up so it's nice and thick. And I'm just going to moisten a small area of it with the blending solution. And then I'll take my time and just dab through the stencil. I don't want to press down too hard because I don't want too much of the solution getting underneath my stencil and then ruining the design. The stencil I'm using today is called Butterflies from Simon Says Stamp. How much ink you want to lift off this is personal preference. I went ahead and lifted a lot of it off there, so they were almost white when I was done. Next, I carefully peeled off the post-it tape and removed my stencil. And you can see how well those butterflies lifted. Isn't that cute? The stamp set I'm using for the sentiment today is called Beautiful Day from Simon Says Stamp. I already have the stamp that I want loaded into my MISTI. I just need to get this positioned. And I'll be using StazOn ink in jet black because the paper is a non-porous surface. This is another instance where the MISTI comes in handy. I'm going to need to stamp this at least 2 or 3 times to get it to show up on the alcohol ink background. The reason for this is the first time you stamp it, it will lift the ink because it's a solvent ink. So after I lift it the first time, I should be able to re-ink my stamp and then stamp it 2 or 3 times and get a nice dark impression. It takes a minute or two for the StazOn to dry, so I'll get my Tombow Extreme tape and put down enough to hold the alcohol ink background. And then I'll add the completed card front onto an A2 card base. You could certainly go ahead and add extra embellishments there in between the butterflies. I did come back to this card later on and I stamped some of the butterflies from that Beautiful Sky stamp set in between with some more StazOn ink. The next idea I want to share with you is adding gilding flakes to your alcohol ink backgrounds to add a little bit of extra punch. Now, in order to do this particular technique, you want to use a lot of ink when you're making your alcohol ink background, so you end up with a lot of ridges and really dark areas. And I'm going to use a glue pen today to add on my gilding flakes. I especially like this big thick one from Nuvo. And the reason I like this one is because I can do thin lines with the edge of it and I can twist and turn as I'm drawing those lines, and I can vary the width so it looks more of a part of the design. The gilding flakes I'm using today are from Nuvo, and these ones are the Sun-Kissed Copper. They are super light, and you really don't want to sneeze when you open these because they will go everywhere. I was praying that the AC wasn't going to turn on because the vent is right over my head here. Luckily it didn't, and I was able to get most of the flakes in place before it started up. There's a few different ways you can lay down your gilding flakes. I've seen people use tweezers and stuff. Just for today, I'm going to go ahead and just use my fingers because the flakes that I have, it's a rather new container, so a lot of them are nice and big, so I can work with them easily. This is very similar to foiling, except when you're using foil, you really want to do that just after you make the alcohol ink background while it is still tacky. It tends to stick on a lot better. Using gilding flakes and a glue pen or whatever adhesive that you'd prefer to put it on with, that would work extremely well with if you have a stack of alcohol ink backgrounds lying around that that they've completely dried. So this is a great way to add some shine to them. I'm going to take this paintbrush from Nuvo and I'm going to just buff around and remove all the loose portions of the flakes. Once you have all the loose flakes removed from your card front, you can go ahead and clean up your area, and you can save the little leftover flakes. Just put them right on back in the jar there. You can use those for another project. I'm using a surface sweep from Nuvo. This is a fantastic little brush. It's great for embossing powders as well, and it does a good job of tidying up your work area. For the sentiment on this card, I'm going to use a stamp set called Boss Babe from My Favorite Things. It is retired, but you can certainly use any type of sentiment you have in your stash. And I'm also going to use a die set from My Favorite Things called FISHTAIL Flag Frames. Say that 3 times fast. It cuts in 2 pieces. I'm going to take the centerpiece out and I'm going to stamp and heat emboss my sentiment in white on it. And then I'm going to stick both pieces together because I want to use the whole piece as one solid sentiment strip. To add it onto our card front, I'm just going to use some foam tape that I have here in my stash. I'm framing it with a piece of black cardstock. This is Bazzill in Licorice Twist. It's 5 by 4 1/4. And then I'm going to add this finished card front to my A2 card base. The last idea I have for you today for using up your alcohol ink backgrounds is making embellishments with them. Now, I have a couple of different types of card backgrounds that I made that I thought would look really nice as embellishments on a card. So what I did was that I used a couple of circle punches. These are from EK Success. I've got a 1-inch circle punch and I also have a 3/4 inch circle punch. And I just move it around the alcohol ink background until I find a spot that I like and I punch it out. Of course, you can use any shape of punch that you like: squares, circles, hearts, triangles. I wanted to add a little something extra to these to make them pop, so I pulled out some glossy accents and I gave them a quick coating of it. In case you have trouble getting glossy accents to stay bubble free when you're laying it down, a good rule of thumb is to start on one side of whatever it is you're trying to cover and work your way back and forth. That way it doesn't give air the chance to get into the product. Now the sentiment I'm using today is a die cut called Jumbled Happy Birthday. It's a memory box die, and unfortunately this one is retired as well. I do have a link down in the description to several other types of happy birthday sentiments that you can easily use on this card. After I ran this through my die cutting machine with some Bazzill cardstock and Easter grass, I used my favorite tweezers to add some foam squares to the back of the letters. For the skinnier parts of the letters, I used my detail scissors to snip them in half so they would fit and they would be hidden in behind. Once I got all the release papers off, I went ahead and trimmed a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. Then I adhered my favorite circles in the bottom right and the top left corners with a few dabs of Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And then I popped my happy birthday sentiment right over the top. The last thing to do is to add this to my A2 card base. And that's our final card for today. And that's it for today. Here's all the cards that we made. Don't forget, if you landed here first, the first portion of this video is on Justine's blog. You can find the link to her channel in the description below. If you liked hanging out with me today, please hit that subscribe button for more crafty goodness. See you soon. Thanks for watching.